It's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives for families of critically ill patients in intensive care so that you can make informed decisions, have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In the last blog, I shared the 7 things families do who make informed decisions, have peace of mind, are in control, have power, and have influence whilst their loved one is critically ill in intensive care. You can check out the last blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to discuss recent, very dramatic developments in the UK regarding babies Alfie Evans and Isaiah Hastrup, and respective decisions made by the High Court in the UK and by clinicians to withdraw life support on less than 2-year-old babies against their parents' wishes. This discussion and those dramatic events tie right in with another blog post I wrote mid last year in 2017 that you can read here. Charlie Gard, the little baby who wasn't allowed to die at home. So, therefore, in today's blog, I want to shine the light on courts in the UK and the National Health Service are killing babies before they had a chance to live. Charlie Gard was a toddler who died last year in a hospice in the United Kingdom in London, even though he hadn't even lived to his first birthday. Charlie Gard was a highly publicised case in the media all around the world, and his parents took the fight for his life to the courts, in fact to the High Court in the UK, to save their son's life. They raised enough money so he could be flown to the United States for experimental treatment that had the potential to improve his severe condition. Charlie Gard had mitochondrial DNA depletion syndrome, also known as MDDS, a very rare genetic disorder that causes progressive brain damage and muscle failure. Therefore, Charlie was life support and ventilator dependent and died as soon as mechanical ventilation was removed. In the end, Charlie's parents weren't even granted their last wish for their son to end his life at home because the judge ruled it was, quote-unquote, impossible to fit a ventilator into a home. As most people know by now, with specialized services like intensive care at home readily available in this day and age, looking after Charlie Gard at home would have been a possibility. The quote-unquote almighty and quote-unquote infallible judge obviously didn't do his homework and made the ruling out of ignorance and not because he was considerate towards Charlie or his parents. It was a ruling convenient for the NHS also. It kept its power and they were able to empty their expensive neonatal ICU bed by removing life support and in essence letting Charlie die rather than allowing the parents to go to another country or letting Charlie die at home. Either way would have achieved the same outcome for the NHS. They would have emptied their in-demand, precious and expensive neonatal ICU or pediatric ICU bed and not have ongoing costs up to £3,500 per bed day for Charlie at Great Ormond Street Hospital in London in the UK. Besides the discussion about Charlie's life worth living, which had been looked at from multiple points of view, the judge deciding that's in his quote-unquote best interest to die and remove life support still didn't give the parents the opportunity to try and seek experimental treatment for their son, or at the bare minimum the parents should have been granted their wish to let Charlie die at home. 75% of people in first world countries, if given a choice, want to die at home, and yet less than 15% actually do die at home. Those are marvelous statistics for wealthy first world countries in desperate need of freeing up expensive hospital and ICU beds in particular. If Charlie Gard's case wasn't sparking enough controversy in the UK and around the world, the next cases were to follow soon that had striking similarities with Charlie Gard. In case you haven't heard of a boy named Alfie Evans in Liverpool in the UK, you have now, and his situation has striking similarities with Charlie Gard. Alfie Evans was born in May 2016 and was admitted to pediatric ICU at Alder Hey in Liverpool in December 2016 due to respiratory failure secondary to an undiagnosed neuromuscular disease with regular seizures. Besides a brief stint outside of the pediatric ICU in May last year, he remains in the pediatric ICU at Alder Hey up to this day in March 2018. He still is undiagnosed to this day. Now, we all know and appreciate that sometimes modern medicine doesn't give us all the answers we want, and that's fine. We can accept that. Just because Alder Hey and its medical staff haven't been able to diagnose Alfie doesn't mean he doesn't have the right to go somewhere else, even in another country, where they believe to have a higher degree of success, to be able to diagnose and therefore help him. Keeping Alfie hostage and not let him go to another country and basically kill him instead is highly unethical and highly inappropriate. In fact, it's outrageous. Where's the hurry in removing life support? Where's the rush in killing him? Kate and Tom Evans, Alfie's parents, have raised enough money to get Alfie treated by specialists in Italy or Germany. Hospitals and intensive care units in both countries are ready to take Alfie and give him a tracheostomy to give him time to be diagnosed and to improve his quality of life. Just like with Charlie Gard last year, it looks like this is meant to be a display of power of the courts, hand in hand with the National Health Service, to deter other families from even trying to save their children's lives. Nobody is disputing that life-limiting illnesses exist. The way the NHS and the courts are going about it is utterly disgusting and doesn't make me want to believe this is happening in a developed first world country. But it's getting worse. At the same time, while Alfie Evans and his parents are fighting to get their son treatment in another country and in essence buy him time, Isaiah Hastrup is another 12-month-old toddler who sustained brain damage at birth at King's College Hospital in London. Isaiah Hastrup, just like Alfie Evans is, and Charlie Gard was on life support, the hospital also wants to withdraw life support against the family's wishes, as apparently it is not in Isaiah's quote-unquote best interest to continue to live with irreversible brain damage and ongoing life support. Now, who's to judge what's quote-unquote in the best interest of a toddler on life support? Now, what all cases have in common is that families want to spend more time with their children, get them better chances of treatment, and also diagnosis and letting go of them on their own terms and when they are ready for it. Again, the question needs to be asked, why is there a rush to kill these babies? All of the families have in common that they wanted to seek alternative treatment outside of the UK give their children a tracheostomy so they can have a better quality of life straight away. It is outrageous that all of those babies, Charlie, Alfie and Isaiah, have been denied a tracheostomy, even though best practice in intensive care clearly suggests that a tracheostomy should be done after about 2 weeks of mechanical ventilation with a breathing tube or an endotracheal tube. It would also improve their quality of end of life for the children if it ever came to that point. Neither of those children was given a tracheostomy to this point, and yet a tracheostomy and a potential transfer to another country, to another hospital and ICU would have and could potentially extend the lives of all of those children, and most likely they would have benefited from a different approach in different hospitals. The current approach is very one-dimensional. The NHS is dragging the families to court to get approval to lawfully remove life support against the family's wishes and in essence empty their expensive and in-demand intensive care beds and also save money on long-term care. The current approach also favours the dinosaur's view that the only way for a patient to leave intensive care is to either die or go to a hospital ward. What an outdated and holding on to power at all cost point of view. In this day and age and for the last 20 years, services like intensive care at home provide long-term intensive care patients with home care and save the health system millions and tens of millions of dollars by providing intensive home care instead of intensive hospital care. Nobody in their media coverage has been addressing the elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room is clearly the cost of an intensive care bed and the demand on those beds and other resources in ICU. As long as the elephant in the room hasn't been addressed in the media coverage, the discussions are very one-sided and lead nowhere, or they lead to the death of those children. The pediatric and neonatal ICU beds that the NHS so desperately needs to treat other critically ill children could have been available a long time ago by letting Charlie Gard, Alfie Evans and Isaiah Hastrup go overseas and continue treatment there. The pediatric and neonatal ICU beds that the NHS so desperately needs to treat other critically ill children could have also been made available a long time ago by giving Charlie, Alfie and Isaiah a tracheostomy and getting them home with intensive care at home services. Neither of those children have been on inotropes or vasopressors as far as our research and information from the families show. Therefore, intensive care at home is possible. Intensive care at home services would have emptied the pediatric and neonatal ICU beds, and it would have cut the cost to less than 50% of the ICU bed and get Charlie, Alfie and Isaiah in a more patient and family-friendly environment. Another option, especially in Charlie Gard's case, was to provide end-of-life care with intensive care at home in the last few days of his life. That's how other countries, mainly Germany and Australia, are managing their demand on ICU beds, whether it be adults or children. And clearly, this approach works and saves lives. Maybe the UK court and the NHS doesn't have an interest in saving lives. Providing intensive care at home services is a win-win situation, whether it be for long-term treatment or for end-of-life care. Again, having the judge decide that Charlie Gard can't go home to die because he's on a ventilator is one of the most ignorant decisions he would have ever made in his entire lifetime. Ignorance is bliss, I suppose. Again, intensive care at home services have been around for nearly 20 years now in Germany and for about 5 years now in Australia. You can also check some intensive care at home case studies out. I put some links below this video. And if you are watching this on YouTube, just click on the link below this video. It'll get you to our website where you can access case studies and the written version of this blog. Intensive care at home services are enormously successful in their approaches and achieve win-win situations by providing quality home care in a patient and family-friendly environment, and also by reducing the cost of an ICU bed by more than 50% and by freeing up in-demand, expensive and highly sought-after ICU beds. The UK's intensive care system therefore remains 20 years behind to creating real win-win situations when it comes to freeing up one of their most precious resources in a hospital, whilst also saving 50% of the cost of an intensive care bed. The NHS and the courts seem to be resistant to change, and they seem to be turning into killing machines by denying families their rights to seek treatment elsewhere. What does the NHS have to hide? Why can't those babies go elsewhere for treatment? What's the hurry in killing babies? There's plenty of time to talk about end of life if Alfie and Isaiah don't improve. But give them the best chance to begin with, and don't deny it to them early in their lives, just to save the money and try and deter other families who are going through similar situations. So, how can you become the best advocate for your critically ill loved one? How can you make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn quickly how to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, real power, and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you will learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions. Discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. How to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle, and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You will get 5 mind-blowing tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence in your situation. You will get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You will get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what is really happening in intensive care. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I will see you again next week in another update. Make sure you also check out our Your Questions Answered section where I answer your questions, or simply send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Or you can call me find the international phone numbers on the top of the website. Also, have a look at our membership site intensivecaresupport.org for families of critically ill patients in intensive care just like you. Also, check out our ebook section where you get more ebooks, videos and audio recordings, and where you can also get one-on-one consulting with me via Skype over the phone and via email by clicking on the consulting tab on the top of the website. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.